This is my 2014 Victory Cross Country Tour. Today I'm going to replace the 40 amp main circuit breaker located down behind the battery compartment. So let's get started on that. This is the circuit breaker I'm going to use. It's a 40 amp from Napa, model number 7823116. This should be a direct replacement, and what I'm also going to do on this is where the cap meets the base, I'm going to take some of this goop household sealant, and I'm going to put a bead all around the edge just to keep it watertight. Chances are you're not going to have a problem with this, but just to be extra cautious, I'm going to put a bead around it. Okay, we're on the left-hand side of the bike, and the circuit breaker is behind this metal portion of the spoiler. So we're going to have to get in behind that. In order to do that, it's just a lot easier to remove the lower fairing of the bike. Two reasons. We're going to be working with wiring and stuff in there, and it's just a lot easier to work in there without this big thing in the way. Plus, there's a bolt to remove this steel part up in top here. You can get at it, it's tricky, and you have the potential of scratching the lower fairing. So let's just take a few extra minutes and remove this thing. It comes in two pieces. There's the outside covering and the inside part. The outside covering is held in place by four 4mm hex screws. Two of them are inside the cubby hole, and there's another one in the middle and one more at the bottom. You take those off and this whole outer portion just comes off. The inner portion, that's held to the crash bar by P-clamps, and we'll work on that after. With the 4 bolts removed, there's a pin right here going through a grommet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my thumb, and I'm going to support the outer shell, and I'm going to push this out. And with a little fidgeting, this whole thing comes off. This is your wiring, your iPod connector and power outlet. It just simply pulls back and slides off. I'm just going to leave it hang here. There are 3 6mm hex head bolts, one down below, one in the middle, and one up here, that you need to remove from the P-clamps on the crash bars, and you need to use a 10mm socket to hold the nuts on the other side, or they'll just spin. I'm also going to remove this front portion of the spoiler just so I can get access to my battery to disconnect it. Some people don't do it, but it's just the way I like to. There's 4 bolts, 2 at the top and 2 underneath, 1 at each side. Once you've got the 4 bolts removed, what I do is I grab this bottom corner, I push it in and slide it over, giving me access to remove the whole thing. This aluminum side cover is held in place by 2 13mm bolts, one up top, one down here at the bottom. And just for fun, Victory decided to put a 5mm hex head screw in the bottom end of it over here. And then there's one final 10mm nut attached to the top of the oil cooler. And once you get all these off, this thing should just come right off. Now, all of this was done just to gain access to this circuit breaker right here. This is the 40 amp circuit breaker, literally on the other side of the battery tray. But you can't get at it by just simply removing the battery. All of this had to come off. So I'm going to disconnect my battery and we'll get started replacing the circuit breaker. So there's a red protective cover over the circuit breaker. You simply grab an end and pull it open. There's two colors on here, and the brass colored post goes directly to the battery. So your battery terminal should go directly there, and then your main wire power goes from the other terminal. This is a 10mm nut, and we're going to remove these. There's these little plastic buttons, one on each side, holding this relay, holding the circuit breaker down. Some people cut them off, but you can pull it out, straighten up the wings, and push it down. Some people think it's not worth saving, and they just cut them and put tie wraps around it. You can do that too. I don't know. I might use these again, or I just might put tie wraps through there. So here's the new circuit breaker. The silicone has dried all the way around it to give an extra layer of protection against moisture and dirt. Remember, brass side towards the back. And I finally decided I'm going to use tie wraps. Because, well, I just didn't trust those buttons anymore, so this will work fine. I also decided I'm not going to use these nuts that go on here because I'm going to have to use Loctite. So I'm going to take the original nuts that have the nylon insert in them, will actually make it more secure. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm also going to smear a good amount of dielectric grease onto the terminals and the contact connectors. We'll put our red plastic cover over on top of it, put our terminals back on. Remember, keeping the battery side to the back, to the brass color, and locking this thing down. Now I'll hook up my battery. And now we put the whole thing back together. Well, that's it. The bike is all put back together. New circuit breaker is installed. Now, I never had any problems with this bike at all, not a hiccup at all. So I didn't really need to do this. But people were saying that this new circuit breaker is far superior from the OEM model that was in there. I don't know. It's up to you to decide what you want to do. But as you can see, main power is back online and the bike works perfectly. So thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.